10 meetings, NJAC 5:39-1.5, I hereby announce that adequate notice and electronic notice of this meeting was provided in notice dated February 14, 2022, that was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, posted on the bulletin board and on the main access door to Township Hall, and filed in the clerk's office, and posted on the township's website. Please be advised that the agenda for tonight's meeting is also available for download on the township's website. Members of the public wishing to provide comment at the designated times may do so over the Zoom platform by clicking the raise hand button or by dialing *9 if accessing this meeting by telephone. Public commenters are asked to provide their name and address prior to comment and shall be limited to 3 minutes. Public comments may not include disruptive conduct such as profanity. Public commenters are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed over the internet, which will be archived on the Township YouTube and Facebook pages, and that the recordings of the public meeting are public records subject to Open Public Records Act. Mayor Bontempo?
Here.
Mr. Santana?
Here.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Here.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Here.
Ms. Weber?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Wendy. Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, by liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence to honor our troops, both home and abroad, who work tirelessly to protect us each and every day. Thank you. Good afternoon. I was going to say good evening. I think we're still afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Holmdel Township Committee meeting, February 16, 2022. We are in the public session now, but Council, I think we need a motion to go into exec and then to come back out into public.
That's right, Mayor. Just to clarify for everyone, we're going to have a brief executive. I don't know, actually, I should say brief, but it'll be a period of time that we're in executive session to discuss the reasons on the executive session resolution, which is the interim township administrator and recruitment services, potential contract negotiation. And then we will come out of executive session, and on the agenda is also a public discussion on the budget. So that'll any public can stay on Zoom, and the committee will come back once the executive is over.
Move to go to exec.
Yep. Second. You need roll call or all in favor, Wendy?
All in favor is good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So
Okay.
log off this and log on to the link for executive session.
All right.
Brian, now if you want to make me a co-host, I can help you.
Okay, just one text run. I'm sorry, I'm letting somebody in and I will.
Take your time. You don't have to.
Are we ready, Wendy?
I don't see DJ on, but I think
I don't see DJ either.
but we can start
Okay.
if you want.
For sake of time, yeah, then Brian just add him.
DJ just got into the meeting.
DJ's on as an attendee, just needs to be elevated.
Brian's letting him in. Thanks, Brian.
So we opened the meeting, we did roll call.
Am I good?
Opening statement, so we're good to go. Sharon, you want it? So for those on the Zoom call or Facebook streaming, we're gonna now go into the public session, which is a budget discussion for February 16, 2022. Sharon, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, just to start out, I have a number of things I want to go through with the TC. I asked for this budget session. Usually I do my full budget presentation and then we move into some of the actions that the Township Committee needs to take. As you know, I'm leaving and a lot of these things are time sensitive. So I asked to have a brief discussion with the TC tonight to go over where the direction we're taking with the budget to see if we should continue to move forward with certain actions, including preparing a bond ordinance, preparing some resolutions for temporary emergency spending and potentially additional staffing adjustments, so that these things that are time sensitive can keep rolling through the transition. Otherwise, it's going to set us back a little bit. So that's why I asked for this. If I can go through everything and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I want to talk about what we're going to present as it relates to the budget, some bonding issues, our recommended capital, and what's not included based on the requests, what you guys can expect in the future, and what I'm proposing to start working on in the next couple of days. I'm going to read from notes so I don't forget anything. So I'm sorry that I'm not looking at the TC. The budget that we'll be presenting next week, and you should have it in your hands any day now, TC members, will have a slight reduction in the amount to be raised by taxes, very slight, but it is less than what we had last year. There'll also be a reduction in the anticipated tax rate. We still have preliminary assessments, so we can't give you the exact tax rate, but it will be about a 10% reduction in last year's tax rate if those assessments stay the same. It also keeps a very healthy surplus for the town. Last year, the adopted budget had a remaining fund balance of just over $1 million. This proposed fund balance will be just over $2 million. So it doubles the amount of anticipated surplus. And we were also very conservative on our budgeting so that we anticipate a significant replenishment of the surplus. The reason that it might make sense for the municipality to bond right now, as everyone knows, the interest rates are low. The interest rates on notes are almost zero, and they are expected to rise in the future. As you guys may recall, we had a presentation in July with our financial advisors who recommend that we should plan on annually investing $3.5 to $5.5 million a year in capital projects. As I mentioned before, some of these capital projects that I'm going to go through with you are time sensitive. We're seeing more and more that we're having delays in getting equipment, getting construction materials. We've talked about the swim club, and that season's going to open before we know it. I've said for years, municipalities tend to bond later in the year, and most municipalities do road projects. If you go out to bid on your road projects early, you get a better price because the competition, the companies are hungry. They want the work after the slow winter season. So those are some of the reasons that their time is of the essence. Nothing prevents the TC from bonding for additional projects in the future if there's something that I haven't included that you want, even later this year. And our budgeting allows for that as well. So what are the capital projects that have been discussed? And you guys remember this from last week. There are facility improvements that are needed. Overall, there's about $8 million worth of facility improvements that are needed. That includes security and card access for town hall, public works storage that's needed, the first aid building renovations, the whole completion of the firehouse, the police locker room renovations, and then what is often forgotten about in Holmdel is the soft costs associated with these projects, the engineers, the architects, the attorneys, all of that. All of those projects I just mentioned in total are about $8 million. We need about $2.5 million to complete them all that we haven't already either spent or bonded for. Recreational improvements that have been discussed. The Duncan Smith Theater had made a request to the Township Committee. We reached out to them. Got to thank Barbara in my office for having that conversation. They made a request for about $40,000 for repairs to their HVAC system, sewer pump, emergency doors. We discussed it with Bill, with Mike, with Barbara. The last time you made a contribution to this theater, it was out of operating. So we've built into what we will propose to you funding for the Duncan Smith Theater, but it wouldn't be out of capital. It would have been out of the operating budget. So we have room in the proposal for that. There has been discussion of tennis, pickleball, basketball courts that are open to the general public up at the swim club site. This is separate from the tennis courts that are part of the swim club. To complete a project like that, it's about $1 million. My recommendation to the Township Committee would be to make those improvements out of the existing bond. If you recall from 2019, there's about $900,000 available to the Township Committee from that bond. So it seemed like everyone was interested in tennis, pickleball, basketball courts. It would be open to the general public. It's almost a new park. And you could take $100,000 out of open space funding to complete that. The swim club utility itself, there were about $1.4 million recommended for immediate repairs based on the engineer's report. As we all know, there was a significant amount of money that was taken from the swim club utility in the past to offset the operating budget. So what we're going to recommend is paying that back through our existing operating budget and investing the amount plus interest, $1 million into the swim club out of the operating budget, and then bonding for approximately $400,000 to complete those improvements that need to be made. And that $400,000 would be paid for with revenue from the swim club in the future. The match for the pedestrian bike trail for the grant that we got, just under 114, it was $114,000. We can have that match using open space trust fund money. We wouldn't need to bond for that. Would recommend $1.5 million in road improvements this year. We've been doing about that for the past couple of years. Again, if we go out early, we'll be able to do more roads. And to Commitment Santana, I can anticipate your question. On the website, we have an updated list of proposed roads, both for 2022 and 2023. I believe, now it all depends on bidding and how costs come in, but I believe we can do those roads that are identified in 2022 with the $1.5 million. As it relates to the sewer utility, and I know this is something that a lot of people don't think about often, but the infrastructure for the sewer utility is really, really important. Our professionals have recommended about $2.6 million in infrastructure improvements there just to maintain it. My recommendation would be to allot $500,000 from the ARPA grant funding that we have received. We'll still have over $1 million for other ARPA projects, but just as the swim club utility was rated for the operating budget in the past, so was the sewer utility. And so while not the entire town doesn't have utility, using some of that ARPA fund to make up for what was taken from that account would be my recommendation. Also, it's important to note that the ARPA funding is very, very, very limited in what you can use it for. And sewer is one that you clearly can use it for. So if you took that $500,000, you would need to bond for 2.2 million to be paid with revenue from the sewer utility in the future. I would note that I recommend that the TC looks at the sewer rates. They really do need to be evaluated. They haven't really been evaluated in a number of years. And so in order to be able to pay for those improvements that are needed, I would look at the sewer rates. Other capital requests that are part of my recommendation include equipment for public safety, public works, IT, vehicles for public works and the police, and archiving. Not included in what my recommendation will be is about $1 million in requests. This includes vehicles, command vehicles or SUVs for fire, community development department, IT, MVRs and police cars, the CAD system for the police department, doors for public works. Again, I want to stress that should the TC wish to move forward with any of those requests, anytime after I go, you can. There's nothing that prevents you from issuing additional notes later on in this year. And we do have enough in the capital improvement fund to have that bonding. And if you choose not to, that could always go towards surplus for next year's budget. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that these things are not important. They are quite important, but it's just a matter of you have to make some decisions. In the future, if you make these improvements, particularly to the facilities, the township will really be up to date on what it needs to have. These public facilities improvements are really important for various reasons. But we've purchased 2 fire trucks in the past couple of years, with the exception of 1 additional fire truck that I anticipate you will need to purchase either next year or maybe the year after. I would suggest next year. There are no major public improvements that the township will need to have. Anything else would be nice to have if you want to do additional recreational improvements or additional, nice to have improvements. Over the next 5 to 10 years, the municipality should be set, and you would just need to make annual capital investments like you do for everything, vehicles, roads, some everyday maintenance of buildings, but no overhaul like what we've been doing over the past couple of years with these big facilities. So if this is the direction that the TC wants to go, sticker shock here, but it's not as much as it sounds. I would propose preparing a bond ordinance. That bond ordinance would have $5.5 million of general operations. That includes everything I just discussed, and that is within that window of what was recommended by the financial advisors. It would include 2.2 million for the sewer utility. Again, that would be funded through future revenues of the sewer utility. And again, the project would last several years, so it should be paid for over several years, just like someone's mortgage. And then a little less than $500,000 for the swim club utility. Again, also to be paid by the swim club utility over a number of years. The total bond, though, would look to be about 8.15 million. I do need to say that if you do want to move forward on these and you want to get them going, we would need to have a temporary emergency budget amendment at the next meeting so that we can start the advertising and the bidding and moving on these projects. And so that would have to be an action you'd have to take. We could introduce a bond ordinance and then potential personnel actions, which we can't speak of in public session, and I'll reach out to you guys separately for that. But those are kind of the actions that you would need to take if you want to move forward on these things. And if you'd like, we can start preparing them for next week. Again, nothing would be binding. The TC can move things around and change things around as they wish, but I wanted to just have that initial discussion with you so you guys knew where we were thinking and to see if we should push forward.
I think
I went very quickly, but I know time's of the essence.
I know, and we'll be getting the follow-up documentation on this, right, Sean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think you hit everything that we talked about in our planning session. week ago, so pretty much spot on. I'll just run through, see if anybody else has any feedback for you. Commissioner Lucarelli, any comments on the administrators?
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. I mean, I know you were like in fast forward there, but you did great. I mean, you hit every point. You were clear on what everything you said. Can you just repeat again? I just want to make sure I understand. You had mentioned there was a $900,000 for the swim club that you recommended using. That's from that old recreation bond?
Correct. That is from that old recreation bond. A lot of the things that were originally in that recreation bond have been completed. There are a couple of things that had been discussed that hadn't been completed. I know that one of the things that was part of that was talked about was improvements at Village School, but we don't own that property. If
That
there
was
was
the
some
Village
sort
School
of
field, right? That lacrosse
for the
field was part
lacrosse
of that?
players,
Okay.
which would be, I think, honestly, I think it's needed. We don't own that property. There's a lot of complications to that. We are
Understood.
talking with the school board. If something happens with that, and the TC wanted to move forward, that is an eligible use of open space fund, and we do have money in open space. So even if we allot the bonded money for these tennis court, pickleball court, basketball court project.
I just
You
wanted to
could
be
do-
comfortable, like if we're going to agree to this, I just wanted to know if there's anything else. Was there anything else in that was like recommended to be used for? Just so I know. So
Absolutely.
I understand this, because that bond was before my time.
To my knowledge, the only other thing in that bond that wasn't completed, or the only other major thing, there might have been like 5,000 here, 6,000 there, was the irrigation at Cross Farm Park on the side.
Okay, thank you. And what year was that bond? Like, what was the year that bond was issued? 19. Okay, thank you, Sean.
Committee Woman Weber, any comments?
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yep. I just want to clarify again, Sharon, because you were in hyperdrive. And the technicality, we would bond for 8.15 million, but 2.2 million of that would be charged to the sewer utility and 0.5 million, give or take, to the swim utility, correct? But
correct. I rounded, but those are round numbers.
And for the big number, and then it gets allocated to those two utilities.
So the reason, and Bill, feel free to jump in if I'm off on anything.
We have to do 3 bonds. That's all. That's what I'm asking.
We want to bond for the big number. We're going to get a much better rate as a general obligation bond than a utility bond, because we're AAA rated as a municipality. So and also you pay. There's a lot of costs associated with bonding. You pay professionals to do it. So I would recommend doing one bond, one general obligation bond, and then in future years you have to pay that off through budgeting in those utility budgets. And we have sat and looked, and when I say that, this isn't just me, this is a team effort of a lot of people in the township. We've looked, and we believe that, barring some disaster or something huge happening, there'll be money in those utilities to pay off their share of that bond.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Committeeman Pravaduto, any comments for her?
No, all the clarifications I was going to request have been made, so I'm good.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Again, you did a great job. I agree with everything except one, which is the road repaving thing. And that is, I want to explore if we can add on more roads to be repaved this year versus next year. Those 2 simple reasons. One, there are a lot of roads out there that need repaving. And 2, the interest rates are fairly low. So it's better to take advantage of them this year versus next year. So is there any possibility of adding on more roads to repave, and as a result, bond for more for repaving?
So that's exactly why I wanted to have this initial discussion. If the TC would like to, the roads are one of those things, as much money as you give us, we will spend. It's unlimited, right? So if the TC tonight said, you know what, add $500,000, we're willing to bond, instead of 8.15 million, we're willing to bond 8.16 million. We can add that into the budget. We do have some wiggle room in the capital, the 5% down that we need to put. So we can absolutely add more to the road repaving. If the TC wants me to, we can have our professionals draft that bond ordinance to be a little greater. Just, that's exactly why I wanted that feedback tonight.
Thank you.
Is that something generally you guys would be interested in seeing?
Yes, I would like to. I'd like to
Yeah,
recommend that. Mhm.
Yeah, I would as well. And in fact, I just did pull up the streets and see, just like we had last year, Sharon, we missed one in a project that had already been started. Last year we missed Candlelight, remember?
Sure.
This
That
year,
wasn't completed?
they did.
I
this
thought it was
year.
completed.
Yeah,
What they
but they
completed?
missed it from the year
Oh,
before. And now we have that same situation. Heather Hill is missing from here. They did the rest of the streets, but they didn't do Heather Hill.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
Sure.
I think we're gonna need more just to do what we
Yeah.
have to do.
Yeah, usually you have the same number of, or about comparable number of roads on either for 1 year and the following year. I would recommend adding on more, at least 50% more this year, and then doing the rest next year.
So,
and just looking at the list of roads, you can't just look at the number of the names of the roads. Certain roads are longer, certain
Right,
roads
right,
need different things.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
there's a lot of aspects to it, but sure, it's just a matter of dollars and cents. And that road list is just a proposed list. There's a lot of changes that we
Agreed.
can make as you move forward.
do we have, Commissioner Lucarelli, any thoughts on adding a little more to roads?
I mean, in spirit, I agree completely with the deputy mayor. I just think that our number is quite aggressive this year, the total capital budget. And personally, I'm happy with spending the 1.5 on road repairs again this year. And I just think that it needs to be spread out. And I totally understand about, the interest rate thing, but I mean, this is a very aggressive capital budget bond ordinance that we're discussing. So I would be happy keeping it where it is.
Committee Pervaduto, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a little torn. Infrastructure is a problem for us, and we know it. In terms of road repair, we've heard a lot of comments and concerns about that. I'm also concerned about bonding for more at this point. So right now, I think I don't know if I want to say I'm abstaining from the thought, but I'm leaning more towards DJ right now, knowing that this is something we have to tackle here, though. And Sharon, when you laid out with the additional bond, we still expect the tax rate to reduce or remain flat this year and out years as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, everything I just outlined was included the amount to be raised by taxes is barely less than last year. I'm going to be honest, but it is less than last year. But the tax rate is about a 10% decrease from last year, as long as the assessments stay what the preliminary assessment.
Can I just ask a quick question then on real fast? Could maybe before we finally decide this, could maybe Victor and you or could you ask Victor to put together, if he feels like this is the right number to get, all the major repairs done this year, or does he think we need a little bit more? I'd like to have another opinion from someone who's actually, knows what needs to be repaired.
I mean, if we ask Victor that, he'd say, let's do what we proposed for 2022 and 2023. That's about $3.5 million.
No,
those are the roads. But my point, those are the roads that right now we recognize need to be repaved. So that's what we know as of right now needs to be repaved. Everything on those two lists, plus Heather Hills.
So everything will get done with the 1.5 that he recommends, that right on that list?
It's there. It's on the list. It's under the recommended 2022 roads. But again, any one of those roads that are on the recommended 2023 could be done this year and need to be done this year. I was just trying to break it down with about the 1.5 million. I think last year we did 1.6 million in roads. I can't remember the year before off the top of my head. So we've always been around there.
Mhm.
Yeah, what I've found is this past year, the list we have for 22, there were roads where the condition of the roads were pretty bad. So I agreed we couldn't do that because we couldn't bond for it. But if we can bond for it, we can add on more roads now. It actually saves us not only money, but it also helps the residents there. That's all.
And I'm usually not in favor of adding money to the budget because this is fairly aggressive, but it's in my view, it's very important. But bond counsel said, and actually it was a meeting yesterday with somebody else regarding this, there's the numbers we're seeing right now, we're not going to see again probably for a long time potentially. So like we're talking around 0.5% interest right now we're able to grab. So, you know, to be able to take care of more residents rather than they could be double or triple this, you know, time next year, we could certainly get more done and impact more residents positively by adding, you know, a little more money on it. But what Committeeman Luke really said, Sharon, chat with Victor and say, hey, you know, are there 2 or 3 more roads you'd like to get on? Give us approximate, because Victor knows this really well. He's very good at
They
this.
would be Bruce Place and repairs to Bryce Road and Hidden Pond. I know we've had this conversation. So it's they're in order of need what we have listed. And it's just a matter of as much as you want to give. I mean, again, there's I think it's close to $4 million worth of roads, 3 and change $1 million worth of roads that could be paved today if we had the money for it.
So I think the bottom line is if we up it some this year because we're trying to take advantage of the lower interest rate, we need to recognize that next year we're going to have to, A, the bonds are going to cost more, and B, we'll have overextended our limit this year. So we may have to bring it down next year. So we just have to be aware of that, right? So if we're at the top of the curve this year and then some on bonding, next year, we're not going to be able to do that again. We're going to have to bring it back in line a little bit tighter, and interest rates are probably going to be higher to boot, which is going to make it, we have to make it tighter so that we don't blow our operating budget in the following years trying to pay off that debt. Correct?
Correct. And next year, I would anticipate that the capital needs to be around $3 to $4 million, regardless. Can I suggest that maybe we open it up to the public because we have to have a public portion and we do have a hard stop at 7.
Yes.
I'm happy to continue discussing this one-on-one with you as a TC, and we can talk more on Tuesday. I'm sorry.
What was the total number again, Sharon, real quick, of your recommendation on the bond? The total number.
Total bond is 8.15. My apologies.
Okay,
of that, 5.5 is general municipal bonds. 2.2 is sewer, and
Right.
which this town hasn't done a sewer investment in a long time, and just under $500,000 for the swim club.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And you'll see all of this in writing as well.
And Sharon, just guys, I'm going to have to split in about 4 minutes, just so everybody knows. I have other obligations I have to attend.
So Wendy, Brian, you want to open up public comment? Yep. So Jay, just state your name and address for the record and go.
Jay Yanello, 18 Ladwood Drive. Thank you, Sharon. That was a really good overview. Just quickly on the roads. I mean, a lot of them are a disgrace. And so I'm wondering, the lists you have, I know you said people could put, names in, requests in. When's the last time we had a formal review where everyone went by, an engineer or Victor or a team went by and looked at all the roads?
Every single year, the road department drives every single road and evaluates them, and that's how they make their recommendation. We always have roads at holmdeltownship.com open, and we do very frequently get residents that will make a suggestion, and we will double check our work at that point and go out and reevaluate the road.
Okay, is the beginning of Ladwood on there, just out of curiosity? Because there's an interesting test to see at what level you guys think a road needs to be replaced. I'm just curious. If not, you might want to redouble effort, and it might be an indicator of how other roads have the degradation has accelerated recently. So
for sure. The other thing also to note is that we're right in the middle of winter right now, and it's right after winter that the conditions significantly change again. So we do this evaluation in the spring. But yeah, I will make a note.
Okay, real quickly off topic, Cracked Olive is closing down at the end of the week, and I'm just wondering if you guys knew that. And it's very sad for everyone in this area, and I'm just hoping we can get another deli or eatery in that area, because it's going to feel real empty without it. I just want to give you a heads up. Thank you.
I was not aware of that. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard their rent got raised or something and they can't.
Yeah,
swing
they've
it.
had a bunch
That's
of
why.
issues there. They're great guys, as you know.
They
They've
are.
been reliable, and it's I got to tell you, the outpouring of sadness in this area, like everyone is in awe about it. So I'm just, if we can do anything to encourage another eatery there, it would be wonderful. Thank you.
Jay, tell them to reach out to me. I may have another spot for them. Not
Okay.
now, but very, very near future.
Okay, will do.
Anybody else in public?
Mayor, there are no other hands at this time.
Perfect. I will close public comment. Sharon, thank you for the presentation. You'll send it out to the TC and then we'll get stuff on our website. We'll have it on the agenda for Tuesday. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
joining. Have a good night.
Thank you.
and
Have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.